Hello, you wonderful Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional shows that I like. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episodes of Bitten as well as The Magicians. In this episode of Bitten, we have Nick and Alexei showing up to Rachel's house, and we have Rachel revealing to Nick that her son has magic. So whatever the hell Alistair did, it gave her magic. Gave her son magic, and it turned, obviously he has Paige show up again, which is, it's kind of nice to see her, which is kind of sad because it kind of leads to a whole conversation between her and Nick, because she said, so like, Nick, what's between you and Rachel? And he's like, I don't even go there, Paige. Nothing happened. Logan was my best friend. There's no way I'm gonna let anything happen between me and his fiance, which I was kind of thinking like maybe that was kind of going to become a thing. I mean, it just seemed like that with their relationship. Like when we see her in this for the first time this season, her and Nick sitting down talking, it seemed like there might be something there possibly. Maybe I was just reading too much into it. But then, Nick is like, I haven't heard from you in over a year. And then Paige is like, this whole thing has been hectic. She basically had to take her mom's position after her mom died. And, dealing, helping out Savannah, moving all around the place. And ends up telling Nick about a new guy that she's going to move to Portland to be with. And he's like, and it's kind of sad. Like they actually legitimately had a thing, but I guess werewolves and witches just don't mix. And we end up finding out that because Roman's name comes up in the conversation, and apparently Paige knows him. A lot of the witches are hiding away from him because he's been tracking down witches for some reason that they don't know. It's alluded. I mean, they basically paint it as like maybe he's actually looking for Rachel's son because he's part werewolf, part witch, which that's what it was alluding to. But you end up finding out, no, he's not. Actually, the person with magic is actually Rachel herself. That basically she has been, whatever Alistair did to her made her into a witch. Now, I'm still not 100% clear on whether it's like most witches get their power, come to their witch powers when they hit puberty. So, but Rachel's getting them now because of what Alistair did. So I'm still unclear on whether that means she's actually a witch, but her powers were dormant this entire time, and whatever Alistair did, awakened them, or what Alistair did actually made her into a witch. Basically, she talks about the fact is that she wants to learn how to control, she kind of got swept up in this world. Her son's a werewolf. She ended up finding out her fiance was a werewolf, but she ended up losing him. Now she's kind of kept on a short leash by Jeremy, because he has to decide what to do with her. And she wants to learn how to control the magic. So for the sole purpose of being able to kind of take back her life, she wants Paige to kind of train her into learning how to control her powers. Then, all the while, we have the first appearance of the werewolf with the one red eye, the same one that killed Alexei and Katya's mom. That whole scene in the cafe was pretty brutal. I was like wondering, okay, what is he about to do with that coffee pot? And he stabbed that guy in the eye with that thing you use for a lobotomy. Apparently, he basically had the guy look down at one guy look at the pot, stab the guy in the other eye, and it's like, they're magic. He's like, I don't see what was going on. He's like, I stabbed your friend. Basically pulled out a little switchblade, cut his throat open, and made him bleed into the coffee pot. It was like, okay. Clay and Elena, show up to save Marsden and get their asses handed to him. Obviously, they fall into his traps at first because Clay got electrocuted. But, Elena goes up against him. And there was that scene where, basically he was going to, put a nail in a certain part of, hammer a nail into a certain part of her forehead. Basically, it was going to be the part of the brain that controls lying. That way she wouldn't have any choice but to tell him the truth about where, Katya is, because he felt like Katya is the easiest one to deal with. Because apparently it seems like he's a Russian hitman. He doesn't do anything for anyone's sake. He's given a name and he takes care of them. So that's what it seems like he is, just a Russian hitman. But, he was about to stick the nail. I was like, oh, God, don't. But luckily, he didn't. He got something else came up. And just that wolf has snuck in to save Marsden. And I was just like, I was so scared he was actually going to pull it off. And, but he left. And Elena, she's tied to a chair, but she ends up getting out by changing her hand into a wolf form and slipping through. Which is like, I love to see more of that. We've only seen that come up one time, right? It was like season 1 or season 2 that basically, Elena is special in the regard that she can stop her transformation. Because most time, no, not most, all the time, when a wolf starts transforming, there's no stopping her transformation. They go through with it. She can reverse her transformation the moment she starts, which is pretty badass. I would love to see more of that because, that just shows you just how unique she is. But anyway, that red-eyed werewolf, because we still don't give him a name because he didn't give its name, that SOB is like tough. He, like, Clay and Elena couldn't even do anything against that dude. He beat the crap out of them and got away. Dude's a one, like, wreck. Like, he's a one arm. It's going to take everyone working together to take him down. And periodically throughout the episode, we have, Jeremy still on his chase for Roman. But, Alexei calls Katya about this, about the reappearance of the wolf with the red eye. And Katya's like, don't worry. All this will end when I killed Roman. She basically found a gun in Rachel's house earlier, in her dresser earlier. She takes that gun out. Rachel and them go to check on her son. He's gone. Katya, her whole, she has this stupid plan that she's going to use the baby as bait because she thinks the baby is what Roman is after, half werewolf, half witch. Because she wasn't conscious when they ended up finding out that it was actually Rachel who has the magical powers, but ends up, taking the baby and is going to, go to Roman. And when he gets close enough, then take him out. She's an idiot. She's an idiot. For one, she has no right taking someone else's baby, putting someone else's baby in danger. Because she's so sure she's going to be able to take down Roman. It's like, no, you're not. If anything, you're going to get yourself killed, you idiot. So obviously, she's going to have to get her damn tail saved next episode. So, but I mean, it's just like, I can't believe she did something so stupid. If it was that easy to kill Roman, he'd be dead by now. I'm sure all the people have had stupid plans like that. They're just like, oh, I'm just going to show up and take Roman down. It's not going to be that easy. He's got other wolves on his side. So you're not just going to be dealing with Roman. You're probably most likely going to deal with other people too. So, like I said, just have to see where that whole situation goes down next episode. Now moving on to this week's episode of The Magicians, Penny actually didn't end up in Fillory. He ends up in this place called the Netherlands. It's basically an in-between world. It acts as like a middle road to other worlds, because apparently there are other worlds. It's not just this world, Earth and Fillory. There are a multitude of worlds. Each one is like, in the Netherlands, you have to go to a specific fountain to get back to a whatever specific place you want to go to. Penny can't just use his powers to travel to Earth because he doesn't really know an exact location, and he can end up killing himself doing it. So he ends up going to Quentin, using that spell, kind of get inside Quentin's dreams, using his powers and getting inside of Quentin's dream, where we have Quentin having a nerdy sex dream where he has Julia and Alice making out. Granted, Julia is dressed up like Leia from Star Wars in her slave outfit. I missed who Alice was supposed to be, and you have Quentin showing up as Indiana Jones, and Penny is like, dude, just up there making fun of him, and then Quentin's like, dude, why do you have to ruin everything? And he ends up telling this to Alice, and Alice is like, hey, so who was I making out with? He's like, what? You said I was making out with someone. And it's like, it was, he kind of was alluding it, and he was like, it was Julia. And she's kind of like, huh. I really love that. But obviously, Penny asked for his help. Basically, he needs to find a way to get to this, specifically get away to the fountain that will lead him back to Earth. At the same time, he's being hunted by a whole bunch of nut jobs because they can't use the fountains like they want to. They're kind of stuck there. They kind of work. Apparently, he ends up learning from there's a lady that works in the Netherlands libraries. Basically, it seems like all in that place, all of time happens at once. Like the past, the present, and the future all happen. So she's like, you're always like this, Penny. You've always been like that, and you're always going to be like that. He's kind of like, wait, what? And very interesting in that library, he's like, yo, he ends up coming across books. He's like, yo, these books have I know these people, they're basically the books of people. It tells their lives. And Penny ends up grabbing his book, and then she's like, oh, you might not want to read that because most people tend to not like, reading about themselves from their own like from a, kind of a third perspective, as well as just like most people don't really like the ending. Basically, the ending shows like how he's going to die, and it's like you really don't want that knowledge, so he just grabs, like, closes the book and puts it back on the shelf. It's kind of very interesting library. I hope we get to see a little bit more of that. But basically, Alice and Quentin go to her house, where we get to meet her mom and her dad. And it seems like her and her mom apparently don't get along. Like, one big thing is apparently they don't agree on the whole Charlie situation. Alice wants to know, like, what happened to Charlie, but her mom, Stephanie, who she has to refer to as Stephanie, I thought that was weird, has to refer to her as that, doesn't want to. And that's kind of what they had a falling out about, because, like, her mom is like, don't assume like, what's going on in my mind. I have the right to be the way I am. I have a right to not want to know what happened to Charlie, but, because Alice always kept questioning, like, what happened to Charlie? How can, you're his mother, you should be asking questions like I am. But, it's not just that, but they have a difference of opinion on a lot of stuff. But basically, the reason why they're there at their house, at Alice's house, is because you end up finding out that they need a traveler's help to, get Penny out of the Netherlands. And she knows of another traveler, and that traveler is someone that her mom knows, apparently someone her mom's been sleeping with. It's kind of a touchy subject, because the last time her mom had an affair, her dad threatened to kill himself. It was his way of getting her attention. And the sad thing is, it worked. They kind of got back, to a stable relationship after, semi-stable. And, Alice was kind of worried about bringing the subject up, but she's like, oh, don't worry about it, She's like, aren't you worried about Dad finding out? She's like, no. Like, your dad's like, knows about Joe. She hid him away at first, but, they came to an agreement. And that agreement being a threesome relationship. So, she comes from a very twisted family, especially considering her father was throwing some kind of, like, sex Roman orgy party at the beginning, like near the beginning. And that's what kind of threw Quentin, because he's like, what do you mean? Like, that's why he's like, your dad was upset about your mom having an affair, yet he's throwing this, like, orgy party and stuff like that. He's a little out there. But then, like, Alice explained, like, her dad's kind of, her family's weird. That, they're possessive of one another, specifically her dad. So it's kind of like, he's fine with all this other sex crap happening, but, like, he is possessive towards his wife. So, anyway, Alice and Quentin end up talking to Joe, and Joe basically tells them that there's a spell that can act like as a beacon. It can show Penny exactly the location of the Earth fountain, so he can get back here. But to do it, they need to do sex magic, which is so weird to hear that, in a term. Obviously, you hear about different forms of magic, like one being dark magic, one being blood magic, obviously stuff like that. But hearing legitimately sex magic, it's just kind of wow. And then basically there's a whole bunch of ingredients you need, but also basically you have to have, like, both parties have to climax at the same time. And poor Quentin finds out, that Alice has been faking some of her orgasms. And it just leads to a whole awkward thing, because at one point he ends up getting sex advice from Joe. And Alice even points it out. She's like, I can't believe my boyfriend is getting, like, tips about how to please me from your boyfriend. This is twisted. And then her mom is like, he's not a good match for you. She's like, Mom, do me a favor and just shut the fuck up. And her mom just kind of laughs. Oh. She's like, I'll just come in back and talk to you when you're not so pissy. But basically, they end up doing their thing. They finally get to, they cross that threshold. It activates the spell, and Penny sees the beacon. He's like, holy crap, they did it. Jumps into the fountain and ends up popping back into, here on Earth, exactly where they are, where they're having sex. Is like, and then and he's there looking at them, and he just like, and Quentin's like, yeah, hey, glad you're back. And Penny's there looking like so disgusted. It's like, God, I would have to pop back in on this. And at the same time, another part of the episode, we have Richard and Julia. Basically, they're meeting up with like a group of other magicians, basically working on some kind of quote unquote project. And I'm guessing that's what that whole thing last episode was, because they needed the formula so that they can do whatever this project is. One of the said people, because they met anonymous, like Julia met the other people, knew the other people through their usernames on the internet, so that she didn't actually know them. Ends up finding out one of those people is actually Katie. Katie's still kind of pissed at Julia about the whole her mom situation, but Julia apologizes. She's like, "It's not my fault. That was whole like Marina. If I wanted to do something, but I couldn't." And then Katie was like, My mom, did she suffer?" It's like, yeah. Julia didn't say anything, but I guess Katie kind of took that as, yeah, she did. Because, yeah, she died pretty brutally, so. But she ended up finding out, like, sometime after she left, Antarctica, when they were all doing their studies, she ended up, like, she was going to go after Marina. She was going to kill her, but Richard came and stopped her. And, kind of put her, on this path that they currently are on. Julia and Katie are, working on learning these different spells, and they're ordering a pizza, but then time kind of rewinds and they're like, whoa, deja vu. And they ended up opening the door. It's the pizza guy again. They just relived the whole moment. Apparently time is what the group is working with. They're working with a time spell because everyone has like something they want to take back. Like basically one of the people is, going in chemo, and it's not like each one of them has a problem that they're trying to reverse time and deal with. Mainly Richard ends up telling his that basically he was a drunk, and basically he ended up leaving his 8-month-old child in a car, and the child died. So he kind of wants to reverse time. They all kind of want to reverse time to fix everything, but time magic isn't something you can do by yourself. It's actually takes pretty powerful magic, but they can do it if they find like the source of magic. Basically what they're trying to do is, I think this whole like normally doing time magic the way that they tell you at break bills is kind of like impossible to do because it takes a large amount of magic. But Richard and his group found a way to do it. Now that Katie and Julia have quote unquote leveled up, learned all the spells, they can be a part of it too, I'm assuming. But basically the plan is for them to summon a god, and that god will help them get the power to reverse time. So I'll be interested to see where that goes, and the whole like another part of this episode was whole Elliot situation. Elliot has spent most of his time in this episode super freaking high. I really love that line where Elliot was so high he was like, wait. I need you guys to tell me, are my eyes open or closed right now? And I started laughing. Granted, it's a little sad because we know the reason why he's like so heavily medicated, the whole Mike situation. But we have Margot dealing with a situation of her own, like her power's kind of going a little out of whack. Like she's making these glasses explode around her. Because initially you think it's Elliot from all his pill popping. They even have a teacher showing up, and the teacher just was like, you guys just called me at the worst time. I was trying to enjoy my life. And Margot's kind of like, you're a teacher. I'm sorry we're taking you away from your busy life, but you're supposed to look into stuff like this. But it's like, no, like he's fine. Granted, he's medicating, but at least he's medicating. I'm not dealing with it some other way. Apparently, the one that's doing all that stuff is Margot. Her chi is being drained from her body, and it's slowly killing her. Basically ends up finding out some guy she had hooked up with. I don't know whether it's a guy we saw or is that something that happened off screen. Basically, he made a golem, a copy of Margot, and all her chi was draining away into him. Granted, the guy fixed it, and she was like super pissed about it. You sick freak, you're making this puppet of me, and I don't appreciate it. She's like, I'm going to take this golem and I'm going to destroy it. Margot and Elliot kind of have a bit of a falling out because, Elliot's still dealing with the whole situation, and he ends up trying to apologize to Margot. He sits down, he's like, there's something inside of me that's broken, and he tries talking to her, and then Margot ends up kissing him. I kind of figured that wasn't Margot when she started not talking, because it seems like golems apparently can't talk. But the real Margot shows up and just, because she had kissed Elliot, and Elliot was kind of like, whoa, and then the real Margot shows up. He's like, I thought you were going to get rid of her. And then she's like, yeah, I was, but I decided to keep her around because it's like, I noticed every time she leaves, it reminds me of how much of a nice ass I have. It's like, that's so weird. You're keeping yourself around just to make sure you remember just how awesome you are. I guess, and she'll probably use her in some other shape or form. Maybe this will be the only time we ever see her. It'd be kind of interesting if we actually got to see a little more of Golem Margot from time to time. She just pops in and just does random crap for Margot. And then Elliot goes off. He's like, let me go get some drinks. He's kind of like shocked about the whole like just being kissed thing. And plus he kind of opened up a little bit to go Margot. And the real Margot had asked like, what were you talking about? He's like, never mind, just let it go. And Margot looks at Golem Margot, and Golem Margot looks like, And she's like, what did you do? Like kind of laughing about the whole situation. So it's very, very interesting episode. Can't wait to see what we, well, I saw previews of next episode, and it seems possibly that the Beast finds his way back into Breakbills. But, we're not 100% sure on that situation. We'll just have to see, exactly 100% of what goes down next episode. But that's really all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.